Hello, everyone. Now, there are a lot of things to think about when we age or as our loved ones age, and sometimes we experience things that kind of concern us, but we aren't really sure what to do about it or maybe how to address it. Managing mental health may be one of those. So Dr. Janaka Sarathchandra is here to help us. Doctor, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And what I said is something we're going to kind of tackle today. Maybe some people are noticing something, but they're not really sure what to do with it. And I mentioned mental health.
Correct.
When we're putting that up against physical health, what would you say is maybe more important?
Well, they both go hand in hand. Both things are as equally important. But what usually happens, unfortunately, is because of the stigma against mental health, people tend to ignore that side of their issues. Especially in the elderly, they, in most cases, try not to forget or ignore about hypertension or diabetes. But because of that stigma, they tend to hide or shy away from any mental health issues. That's really led to a huge rise in suicide rates, in especially the 65 and over age group as compared to any other age group, which is of big concern now.
And that's exactly why we're talking about it, to kind of get the word out to a broader audience.
Right.
What are some of maybe the common mental health issues that you've seen?
So most of the mental health issues are just the same as for any other person. Yep. You get the depressions, you get the anxiety, the panic attacks, and then the post-traumatic stress disorders. But what is different is the set of unique stresses the elderly face. As you age, you lose a lot of your independence. You might have to move to an assisted living facility, or some of your loved ones pass away, and that's tough on a lot of people. So these stressors are the cause of the mental health disorders that they face. Another one that's unique and seen mostly in the elderly is the dementias. You get the Alzheimer's dementias, you get the Parkinson's dementias.
And I know you mentioned depression and maybe some of those other things. Do you think on top of there being a stigma, do you also think that people maybe just assuming it's natural, it's a part of life that I'm feeling this way or whatever, do you think that also kind of hinders them from getting help?
Well, good point, because it's a huge misconception that we are to expect the cognitive decline or the depression, but that's absolutely not true. What happens is, or what's happened is, because we are living longer now, thanks to advancements in medical health, our brain, just like any other organ in the body, also ages. But the difference is, it's only at a higher risk for the brain not to function as well. So we shouldn't be expecting it to be a normal occurrence. It's at a higher risk for cognitive decline or the depressions.
And I love that we're breaking down some of these misconceptions, some of these myths. And I think another one of those is somebody may assume, maybe if you maybe have some problems with abusing, whether it's prescription or drugs or drinking, that's supposed to just decline as you age or that tapers off. Is that a misconception?
That is as well. So it's not necessarily true. There are two sets of substance abuse users in the elderly. The first is the user that never really stopped since they were young. They keep abusing alcohol or drugs. And the second is the late onset group. And that's the concerning group because of the unique stresses that they face, it's not uncommon to see the elderly get into substances. And in fact, the Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services, they estimate about 17% of the population in the 65 and over abuse prescription drugs. And that goes into the whole opioid epidemic that we're so aware of and face now as a nation.
And some of that, I think, is very obvious. We can see if maybe somebody is, maybe abusing something, but something that's very subtle that people don't address is maybe we're feeling someone, or even ourselves, they're kind of isolating themselves. Is that also kind of falling into a category of this could be a red flag?
It could be, and that also depends. If someone's always been isolated and that's their personality, then that's different.
Right.
But as loved ones and friends, we should first ask ourselves if it's a big difference in how they used to be. And that could be a big clue to an underlying mental health disorder and should be further investigated and should be concerned about.
So now that we've covered so many of these things that could be red flags, what are misconceptions, what do we do if we find ourselves or somebody that we love going through any of these?
First and foremost, and the most important thing is to start a dialogue. But that's also the most difficult thing. because of the stigma that's involved. It makes it difficult to start that dialogue. But you'll be surprised to know that in most cases, starting that dialogue is a huge relief for them to know that people care about them. It's like a burden that's lifted off of them. Another thing that people can do, and so that can be a life-saving mission in most cases. Another thing is talk to their primary care physicians. Tell them about what you've noticed, your concerns. They can try to connect their loved ones and the elderly with services like Meals on Wheels, or there's senior center services that they should explore. And then psychotherapy or counseling is another option. And then you have these psychiatric units that specialize in geriatric.
I think us starting a dialogue here will definitely be a jump off for somebody to have a little bit more confidence to start that dialogue in their own personal life. So I want to thank you so much.
Thank you very much
for coming in. This was amazing. And even beyond this, Cornerstone Behavioral Health-El Dorado is located at 1400 North Wilmot Road. To learn more, give them a call at 222-8268 or visit cornerstoneeldorado.com.